Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Exploring Photography right here on Adorama TV. I'm Mark Wallace, and in the next 2 episodes, I'm going to be showing beginners how to take a drab image and make it look really fab using Lightroom Classic's Develop module. Now there are 2 things we really need to understand when we're developing images, and one is that you can make global adjustments. You can change the color for the entire image, you can change the contrast for the entire image, you can do all these global things, but once that's done, you want to hop over and do local adjustments, do little fine-tuning adjustments here and there in specific areas of the image. So we're going to do 2 episodes. The first all about global adjustments, and the second all about fine-tuning those local adjustments. So let's dive in right now. Recently I had a great photo shoot in Bangkok with a model named Ammeke, and I think this image is the perfect image for us to learn about global and local adjustments. So we're going to start by going to the Develop module and to learn about how to make all our global adjustments. Now right off the bat, we have too much information on the screen. One of the great things about Lightroom is that you can hit Shift Tab and get rid of all of these panels. It gives us a much cleaner interface. Really, we just need this panel on the right. So there's this little triangle. I'll click that. This will pop out, and we're just going to use this right-hand panel over here. Now if I scroll down, you'll see that there's all these buttons and sliders and thingies. It looks like a NASA launch control panel. It's just overwhelming. And so the nice thing about Lightroom is that these panels are broken up into sections or panels. So we have a basic panel, the tone curve panel, etc. You know that it's a panel because it has a heading and a triangle. If you click that triangle, it will collapse that panel or that section. You can also right-click and then just say collapse all. And that makes things look so much nicer and so much easier to understand. On this right-hand side here, Lightroom has compartmentalized things. The bottom section down here is all about the global adjustments, the things that impact the entire image. And then up here, these tools right here are for local adjustments, so for specific areas in your image. So we're going to be working with our global adjustments in this episode. We're going to start with something called the Detail panel, this right here. Now by default, if you are shooting RAW, which you should be, you need to sharpen your images. So we'll show you that exactly. So I'm just clicking on the image, that's making it zoom to 100%. Now down here, by default, Lightroom is going to sharpen this to 25, which isn't very much. Really, this should be set somewhere between 80 and 100. So I'm going to bring that into about 80. And you can see that now we can see the details in Amme's eyelashes and in her hair. And so if you don't know much about sharpening, don't worry. You don't need to learn all about this radius and detail and masking. Just understand that the amount should be somewhere between 80 and 100. You want to do that where you can start seeing all the fine details in the eyelashes and fine details, maybe if you're shooting scenics in blades of grass or leaves or branches, things like that. Don't overdo it. If you go too far, you can see that everything starts to look plastic and really nasty. You don't want to do that. And so we want to bring this into about, I'm going to leave it at about 80. Okay, well now that that is done, I'm going to close this Detail panel and open up our Basic Adjustment panel. Here is where we're going to adjust our color temperature and our tonality, our shadows and highlights and exposure. So I always like to start by setting my white balance. Now you can do that by just dragging this temperature slider right here to make things a little bit more blue, a little bit more amber. You can change the tint. But if you're not quite sure where this should be set, you can use this little dropper tool. So you click on that, you get the eyedropper, go out somewhere that should be white, like the whites of Amme's eyes. I'll click on that and it'll set my color temperature. Now, luckily for me, my camera did a really good job getting the color temperature right, so I can just click on As Shot and that will set this to the correct color temperature. It's really nice. The other thing we need to do is set our exposure. Now this is a pretty good start, but I think it's a little bit overall underexposed, just a hair. So I'm going to drag this slider to the right. Now notice this is a global change. It changes everything, the entire image. So I'm just going to change this by about plus 25, a quarter of a stop, just to brighten it up just a hair. Now I want to add some contrast and make this look a little bit more pleasing. So I'm going to start by taking my black slider. It's going to take all of the blacks and adjust those to make them more darker or brighter. So I'm going to make these darker just down here a little bit. So I'm about here -60-ish, something like that. I like that. Notice how the contrast back here in the city looks so much nicer in this hallway. So if I put that back where it was, we've got sort of not so contrasty. I bring it down to about 60. That looks pretty darn good. But we have a problem here, and that is now Am's hair is all blocky. We don't see any of the details. That's okay. We have this shadow slider. These are all the shadows. So I can bring those shadows back by going to the right and saying, hey, I want to see some of those details. I can do that about the exact opposite of where my blacks were. So I'm plus about 61, 62, something like that, and maybe even a little bit more. So we'll go up into the 70s, and so you can see that we're really starting to get some contrast here. It looks really nice. Okay, we can also do the same thing with our whites and our highlights. So if we want our whites to be a little bit brighter, our highlights to be a little bit less or more exposed, we can do that. Fortunately for us, our highlights and whites look pretty good. Now here's one of the tricks about these different sections here. If you change something, for example, the whites, notice if I change that way up here, I don't like it. I just want it to go back where the default is. I can double click on the actual word and it goes back to where it was before. Same thing with the shadows, double click, it goes back to the default. So I'm going to put that back where we had it, which was plus 78. Okay, so you'll see me do that a lot where I'm just double clicking to reset. Now our exposure and our color is set. We can hit Y, it's a shortcut key to see the before and after, and you'll notice right off the bat things are already starting to look better with our adjustments here. I'll hit Y again to go back to our develop module and kick this panel out. Now the other thing that I want to do here, we've done most of our adjustments already, our global adjustments, but one of the things that I want to do is I want to add an effect, specifically the post-crop vignetting. Now why is it called post-crop? Well, we're going to crop this image and you'll understand that a little bit better. So vignetting is just a technique to add either white or black around the edges of your image. You can use that to correct a lens that has an issue or add some artistic flair. I'm going to pull this all the way to the right so you can really see what's happening here. And I'm going to take the feather all the way to 0. So feather is something that shows you what the transition is from your effect to where there is no effect. So at 0, it's just a hard line. At 100, you can't really see where it starts and stops. So I'm going to go back to 0 here so you can really see this. Our midpoint shows us how close to the center the vignette should be or to the edge. And then the roundness shows us if this should be round, a little circle, or if this should be more of a square. So you have something like that. Now you're really never going to use it like this. I hope not. Well, maybe you will. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add a little bit more realistic vignette to this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add an amount of about -30-ish, something like that, about -33. And you can start seeing that we have a dark edge around here. The midpoint, we want to bring that in. So I'm going to bring that to about 40-ish, something like that. And then we're going to add our roundness. That's going to be something like that, again around the 40s. So now you can see that we have this sort of subtle vignette around the side. And then I'll bring my feather back to where it should be, which is about 50. And you can see that's really, really subtle. Now these panels here, in addition to having these little triangles that you can open and close these sections, there's also this little switch over here. You can click that to turn your effect on and off so you can see sort of what you've done. So I'll turn this on. You can see the vignette brings the attention back to Am. I'll turn it off. You can see that goes away. So it looks pretty cool. All right, one more thing to do with our global adjustment, and that is we are going to crop this image. I don't like that we have this little door down here, and I also don't like this inside of Am's elbow. So we're going to fix that by cropping the image. So I'm going to click on this crop tool, and then I'm just going to drag this up about like that. Once I've done that, I can also move this around inside of the crop where I've defined it. But I've chopped off these areas that I don't like, and I'm going to say close. Now notice our vignette, if we take the feather off, it's still the same distance from the edges as it was before. So it changes based on the crop. That's why it's called a post crop. It is applied after the crop, which is really, really nice. In the old days with Photoshop, it was cropped off. And so you would have a vignette that would get chopped off when you cropped. All right, so there is our basic adjustment. We've done our global changes. We'll do a before and after by hitting Y. You can see that this is much more contrasty. It's much cleaner. You can see all the fine details. It looks pretty darn good, but there's some local things that we need to do. We need to do some minor skin correction to this blemish here. We've got a scar on the top of Am's forehead and this little beauty mark. We'd like to change that. Maybe this area back here, add a little bit more contrast and change some colors in specific areas, but that's what we'll do in the next episode. All right, well, it looks like we have our work cut out for us in the next episode where we'll be doing all of those adjustments to specific areas of the image. So make sure that you join me for the next episode. Well, thanks for joining me for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Adorama TV. It's absolutely free. That way you can learn all kinds of things specifically about Lightroom and photography and videography and all kinds of things. So check that out. Also make sure you check out Adorama.com. It's got gear for everything that you could possibly imagine. Follow me on Instagram. Here's my Instagram feed right here. And I will see you next time.